here giving you coffee.
He's getting me coffee.
Hi, Peter. It's Georgia.
Oh, I see.
Hi,
Oh,
Barbara.
Georgia.
Yeah, those faces.
Hi.
Hi, Julie.
Hi, everybody.
Julie.
Hi.
That's Julie. Hi, Julie.
How you doing?
Hi.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see you all here today. Welcome to online worship at the Unitarian Society of Northampton in Florence. I'm Jessica Harwood, the Congregation's Director of Faith Development and Community Engagement, and I'm so glad to be here with you today. We are a congregation with a tradition of liberal faith and committed social action. We uphold the principles and values of our Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations. And we strive to be a community where all are welcomed and included, without regard to age, race or background, sexual orientation, gender identity, or abilities. I see many of you are turning off your videos, and we'll ask that you do that to preserve the bandwidth. And if a host does it for you, they will try to turn it on before social hour. We invite you at the end to stay for social hour for small group conversation. And RE families are invited for an end of the year celebration in a separate Zoom link that I sent earlier in the week, and I'll include in the chat at the end. There are also links in the chat for our YouTube stream of the service. It is working today. So if you're having trouble connecting, you should be able to see a smoother stream of our service on YouTube. I also put the virtual visitor card so you can sign up and get on our mailing list for all of our events and the Zoom links. During the community greeting, we will ask you to turn your videos back on so that you can wave and say hi. You can chat to everybody a message for today, for Father's Day, and for our flower ceremony. Otherwise, we ask that you only use the chat for private messages. And we will now begin our service.
its beauty, its promise of summer gifts, as well as its warnings and reminders. This day is ours, its brightness of opportunity for doing and not doing, its possibilities for deeper understanding. This day is ours to make in our hearts, alone and in community. And now I invite you to join in saying our chalice, lighting as Britt lights it for us today. We light our chalice as a beacon of hope, a sign of our quest for truth and meaning. We light our chalice as a beacon of love in celebration of the life we share together. And now it's time for us to acknowledge and welcome new members, and Jan will be with us in just a second to begin that. There you are. Unmute yourself.
I think I am unmuted.
Okay, speak.
Oh. Today we recognize and extend the congregation welcome to everyone who has joined the Society as a member since last annual meeting in May, a year ago. We will try to spotlight those who are with us today so that everybody can see you. So I'm Jan Netler, chair of the Newcomer Connections team. And I just wanted to say, if you haven't formally joined the congregation and want to, and you're interested, please contact the office and Lisa will connect you with me or Kathy Lilly. So as I say your name, I invite you to unmute your video so that we can see you. So we welcome Amanda Van Lankveld, Bob Barron, Austin Porter, Laura Porter, Paula Rapoulis, Bharat Trivedi, Linda Sanat Miller, Peggy Mish, Susan Reitman, and David Reitman. So I'm very happy you have chosen to become members. We are proud and excited to have you with us. You have made a public commitment to be part of this community and keep it alive. You have written yourselves into the story, the noble history of this congregation, which began 195 years ago, and the larger movement of which it is part. Our members love its promise and would keep that promise. The promise of community, the promise of a free and pluralistic faith, the promise of contemplative life grounded in pursuing justice and the flourishing of life on our planet. You have joined our future. You have made a commitment to assuring that the thousands of people who come after you will have a religious home. Yes, we are so happy and proud to have you with us.
And now I invite all of you, if you are willing and able, to rise from your couch or chair, and if not, just remain seated and join me in saying the congregational welcome that we have printed on the slide. Let's all say it together. Welcome, every new member You can unmute yourselves. Or maybe not. You can say it, just move your lips. We know you're glad to be here. Let us now covenant together. All of us come together freely as members of the Unitarian Society of Northampton and Florence. We pledge to work together to fulfill our mission to build a welcoming community where all can safely learn and grow, respect and support one another, to follow the call to be our higher selves, and to inspire one another to service and justice.
Justice making.
Thank you all. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And now please join in singing our song, whoever you are. And we are so blessed to have some singers widely spaced in our Great Hall today, and so we're going to do it in a bit of a canon. Please join, we'll sing it maybe 2 or 3 times.
And now is the time for us to do our community greeting. So we invite you to turn your videos on again if you'd like and wave hello, chat a greeting to everyone in the chat, and we'll give you about a minute to do it. You're welcome to continue for a little bit afterwards. But we have a lot planned for today, so we won't spend a lot of time with the community greeting. See folks waving. And if you want to turn your screen onto gallery view, you can go to the top right where those 9 squares are, and you can see everyone in all of their wonderful Sunday morning glory. It's so nice to see you all. Seeing a welcome new members messages. Happy summer solstice from Sherry. And happy Father's Day to all the dads. And I think a lot of you are appreciating the flowers that you received if you received them yesterday. All right, well, thank you all so much. It's wonderful to see you. If you could turn off your videos now, that would be great. I see some flowers on the screen, which is great.
We have a story this morning in 2 parts, and if I can, I am going to share my screen. This is a test. called The Quilt Maker's Gift. Once upon a time, there was a quilt maker who lived in the blue, misty mountains. Some people said there was magic in her fingers, and some said the needles and cloth were gifts of the bewitched. Many people climbed her mountain, their pockets bursting with gold, hoping to buy one of the quilts, but the woman wouldn't sell them. She said, "I give my quilts to those who are poor. They're not for the rich." On dark, cold nights, she would wander down the mountain to the town below and go through the streets till she found someone sitting outside in the chill. And then she would take a newly finished quilt and wrap it around their shivering shoulders. The next morning, she'd begin a new quilt. The king of this land was a very greedy man who liked nothing better than to receive presents. He got hundreds and thousands of beautiful presents. They were things that shimmered and glittered and glowed, whimsical and practical, mysterious and magical. But this king never smiled. He wasn't happy at all, and he thought there must be something else, one more beautiful gift that would make him happy. One day, he ordered his soldiers to search for anyone who had not yet given him a gift. And not long after that, a soldier rushed into the palace with news about a magical quilt maker who lived in the mountains. "How is it," said the king, "that this person has never given me one of her quilts?" "She only makes them for the poor, your majesty," said the soldier. "She won't sell them for any amount of money." "Well, we shall see about that," said the king. "Bring me a horse and 1,000 soldiers." And off they marched. They arrived at her house and demanded a quilt. "My quilts are for the poor and needy," she said, "and I can see that you are neither." "I want one," said the king. "It might be the thing that will finally make me happy." The woman thought, "Make presents of everything you own, and then I'll make a quilt for you. Every time you give away a gift, I will sew in another piece, and when all of your things are gone, your quilt will be finished." "Give away my treasures? No way!" So the king ordered his soldiers to seize the beautiful star quilt she was making, but she tossed it out the window, and a great gust of wind carried it away. The king was angry. He marched the woman down through the town and up another mountain. His iron makers shaped a thick bracelet of iron, and they chained her to a rock in the cave of a sleeping bear. The king asked again for a quilt, and again she refused. "Well," said the king, "I will leave you here. When the bear wakes up, I'm sure he will have a very fine breakfast. That is, you." When the bear's eyes opened, he saw the woman in his cave, and he stood on his legs and he roared. And she looked up and said, "No wonder you're so grouchy. You've got nothing but rocks on which to rest your head when you sleep. Bring me some pine needles, and with my shawl, I will make you a great big pillow." And that's what she did. The bear broke her iron bracelet and asked her to spend the night. And so the bear slept well that night, because although he was very good at being greedy, he was bad at being mean. All night he couldn't sleep, thinking about the woman in the cave. "What have I done?" he thought. So he woke up the soldiers, and they all marched in their pajamas up to the cave to save her. What did he see when he arrived? They saw the woman and the bear having breakfast, berries and honey. The king became angry again. He ordered his royal island makers to build an island barely big enough for the woman to stand on. You can see her right in the distance there. In the middle of a huge lake, they put her on that island, and once again the king demanded a quilt, and once again she refused. "Very well," said the king, "you can't stand there forever. When you get tired, you lie down and sleep, and you'll drown." And they left. A fierce cold wind was blowing. The quilt maker spotted a sparrow struggling in the wind, and she called to him. He landed on her shoulder, and she noticed he was shivering with cold, so she quickly made him a coat out of scraps from her purple vest, and when the wind died down and the sparrow was warm, he flew away. And then, a little while later, thousands and thousands of sparrows appeared. They swooped down, they lifted the woman in their little beaks, and they carried her safely to shore. Booker?
This is the Social Justice Minute. The Reverend William Barber, the Poor People's Campaign co-leader Liz Theo Harris, Nell West, and Timothy B. Tyson co-wrote an opinion piece with Friday's New York Times. They said, in part, cries of "I can't breathe" call out in compelling shorthand America's enduring racial chasm in every measure of well-being: healthcare and infant mortality, justice, water quality, environmental safety, wages and wealth, unemployment, education, housing, policing, and criminal justice. The bills that bustle through our legislatures offer narrow reforms of police procedures and bypass the fullness of what the protesters are saying. The children of privilege are protected not by a higher grade of policing, but by deeper layers of resources. And that is what ought to protect all of our children. Our national history and character carved the scars into our body politic. Policy tinkering will not heal them. If we are to understand the pressing need for radical reconstruction of our nation in this moment, we must look back to see how 400 years of compromises with white supremacy brought us to this place.
So many of us are grappling with our roles in what's going on and has been going on for the last 400 years. And the racial justice team is certainly not taking the summer off. There are plenty of Zoom offerings and events for people to engage in their own understanding of white supremacy culture and racism in our country. The first is on July 1st, and it's an interview that Amy Landau did. Amy Landau is one of the members of our congregation. It's an interview that she did with Charles Person, who is a freedom rider. When he was 18 years old, he joined others who traveled to the South in an effort to end segregation. The link to the interview is in the chat right now. It was also in the Sunday Times, and on July 1st at 7 p.m., there'll be a conversation for people to talk about what they learned from the podcast. We are also offering 3 book groups this summer. There's one that's been added in July on 2 Wednesday evenings, the 15th and the 29th. There's also a white fragility book group that's coming together. And lastly, Red at the Bone, which is a fiction novel by Jacqueline Woodson about a Black family in different generations. So what you also see in the chat is my email. If you'd like to RSVP for any of those book groups, you can do that by emailing me. Thank you.
Now it's time for our offering. Many of you have contributed through our on-site donate button to various causes, including primarily our local COVID-19 community fund, which has done a huge amount to help members of the Alden Baptist Church in Springfield and the Holyoke Boys and Girls Club. I am going to meet with Pastor Love of the Alden Baptist Church tomorrow, and I will have reports for all of you about that conversation and how we might continue an ongoing relationship with that community. I'm very grateful, we are grateful for all of your gifts. And without further ado, we'll have our offerings. Remember, the woman has just been rescued from her island in the middle of the cold lake. Guess what? All that night, the king could not sleep thinking about what he had done. So he woke up his sleepy soldiers, and they marched in their pajamas. All right. Trying again. We'll have to take a pause. Jessica, do you want to read some more chat messages?
Do you want me to skip ahead to the RE part?
No, I want to finish the story.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Oh.
I don't know what happened.
I'm happy to go back to our greetings from earlier.
Sure, go back to the greetings.
Elaine Apthorpe said, howdy, dear ones. Ginny, Eugene, and Milo said, good morning, everyone. Kathy Lilly said, happy Father's Day. Jan gave an official welcome new members. Naomi says, happy, and we've got a slideshow.
We're close.
Happy solstice and happy Father's Day, everyone.
Oh, and happy Zooming. So, our woman was in a tree, but the king didn't know that. He marched his soldiers in their pajamas again down to the lake, and when they arrived, she was sitting on a tree limb sewing tiny purple coats for the sparrows. It is kind of a silly story. I give up, the king shouted. What must I do for you to give me a quilt? Give away all the things you own, and I will sew a quilt for you. With each gift you give, I'll add another piece. Can't do that. I love all my things, but they don't make you happy. What good are they? The king thought about what she said. He thought for a very long time, and finally he went to his castle and he started searching. He searched high and low for something he could bear to give away. And he came out with a single marble. The boy he gave it to smiled brightly. The king didn't smile back, but he did go back in for some more things. He brought out a pile of velvet coats and gave them to people who were dressed in rags. They were so pleased they marched up and down the street in a grand parade. Still, the king wasn't quite ready to smile. He fetched 200 waltzing blue Siamese cats and a dozen fish that were clear as glass. He ordered his merry-go-round with real horses to be brought out. The children cried with delight and cartwheeled, and people danced, and the smallest of smiles began to show on his face. A child caught his hand. She's down at the bottom right. She pulled him into the dance, and the king really smiled, even laughed out loud. How can this be? He cried. How can I feel so happy about giving my things away? And so he kept giving things away, and the quilt maker kept her word. She started a quilt, and with each gift she added another piece. When there was no one left in the kingdom to give his gifts to, the king decided to go into the world and find others who might need them. And magically, a sparrow would appear in the quilt maker's window every time he gave something away, so she would know how many pieces she needed to make. And the king traded his treasures for smiles all around the world. Finally, one day, a very tired sparrow flew to her window. It was the last messenger. She put a final stitch in the quilt and started down the mountain to find the king. His royal clothes were in tatters, his toes poked out of his boots, but his eyes glittered and his laugh was wonderful and thunderous, and the quilt maker took the king's quilt out of her bag. It was beautiful. Standing on tiptoes, she gently wrapped it around him. I promised you long ago, she said, that when you yourself were poor, I would give you a quilt. And the king laughed his wonderful laugh. I'm not poor. My heart is bursting with memories of all the happiness I've given and received. But thank you, he went on. There's just one treasure I have left to give away. I've been saving it for you. And from his rickety rundown wagon, he brought out his throne. It's really quite comfortable, he said. Just the thing for a long day of sewing. And from then on, the king and the quilt maker were great friends. By day, she sewed beautiful quilts, and at night, he took them down to town. And they were both happy until the very end of their days. And now please join in singing hymn number 404, What Gift Can We Bring?
And now the RE piece. The seventh principle of Unitarian Universalism calls us to respect the interdependent web of which we are all a part. This spring, that web has become ever more apparent as we've seen ourselves stepping forward, helping, and depending on one another. I've had the pleasure of witnessing the strength of this community. Scientists think that a spider's web is stronger than steel. And when they've tried to figure out what makes it so strong, it turns out that it's made of millions of nano strands all combined together. And I hope you've all had a moment of feeling that you are a piece of a connected strand. And if you are new, I hope that you will soon feel that tug. When I think about the past year, I think about all the amazing students who brought themselves, their ideas, their caring, and search for meaning to help build that strength. As the king in the story said, my heart is full to bursting with memories of all the happiness I've given and received. I want to take a moment now to appreciate all of the children and youth who've participated in our RE programs this year, where we focused on anti-bias and anti-racist education. And during this time of pandemic, we worked to support each other, make sense of what was going on, and find some joy and time to play and socialize together. Thank you for bringing your curiosity, your willingness to explore, your wisdom and leadership. As you cross the threshold of this year, I want to share a wish for you. May you know your own worth and dignity. May you accept yourselves and one another, knowing we are all part of an interdependent web. May you continue to learn and grow. Let us work together to build a more just, equitable, and sustainable world. And to all of the many, many volunteers who helped make our RE programs possible before and after COVID, thank you so much. We even had some youth and young people as volunteers. Dash, Milo, and Isaac have been leading games groups over Zoom. Monica, Kaylee, and Eva started an art club. And some adults have formed one-on-one relationships over Zoom with a child, which has been very helpful to parents and children alike. And our youth group advisors have more than doubled their weekly meetings, I think. And there's just been so much support for each other. We've truly been a multi-generational community. I hope that all of you as volunteers have noticed the ways that you've learned and grown in being part of our RE community. I also wanted to take a moment to celebrate those who experienced a major milestone this year. The first one is a sad one. Cherry, AJ, Seamus, and Cody Sullivan have moved to Vermont. For those of you who didn't know, they moved at the beginning of June, and we will miss them so much, and we thank them for all the contributions they've made to our community. And on a happier note, I want to congratulate everyone who graduated this year, whether it was Gabriella from high school or the many college graduates. And I want to thank and celebrate the amazing parents and caregivers who have somehow found ways to cope, work, homeschool, do all of the things during this time. You're truly remarkable. And in particular, I'd like to thank the RE Council, all the helpers and teachers, the COA mentors and the COA teachers, youth advisors, and the amazing Annie Doran, our youth and young adult director, as well as Asa Spellman, our early childhood educator, who's moved on as she's graduated college this year as well. Thank you for your time, energy, and love, and for building this community of support, learning, and inspiration. Thank you for weaving this web of community together with us.
Our meditation comes from our choir, which Dana has been leading in some poetry reading, and I think Jessica will share it now.
Splitting from the Lark for Dana.
Apologies.
That's okay. Trying again with the meditation.
Our meditation today is a poem by Anthony Walton, a Black American poet who's professor of writing and writer in residence at Bowdoin College. Dissidence. In Memoriam Felonious Monk.
You have to be able to hear past the pain, the obvious minus thirds and major sevenths, the merely beautiful
ninths. You have to grow deaf to what you imagine are the sounds of loneliness. You have to learn indifference.
Do static and welcome noise like rain. Acclimate to another kind of silence. You have to be able to sleep in the city, taxis and trucks careening through your dreams and back again, hearing the whines and sirens and shrieks.
As music, you must be a mathematician, a magician of algebra, overtones, and acoustics, mapping the splintered
Intervals of time, tempo, harmony, stalking or sluicing blues scales. You have to be unafraid of redundancy and aware
that dissonance-driven explorations of dissonance may circle back to the crowded room of resolution.
you have to disagree with everything except the piano. Black and white keys marking the path you must climb, step
by half step, with no compass but the blues, no company but your distrust of the journey, of all you hear, of arrival.
Good morning, everybody. We have a little surprise for Dana now. The choir, which had so enjoyed our get-togethers after not being able to sing anymore with Dana, reading poems together, music, where we had to hand off our lines to one another and try to make the voice sound like a continuous voice. So we thought we might try to do that again as our farewell to Dana. And I have written her a poem for the occasion, which was inspired in part by the beautiful Emily Dickinson poem, Split the Lark, because I know that Dana loves Emily Dickinson. And Dickinson's poem talks about how you can cut the lark open, but the music is not there. And I made use of that poem in part to take off from in our honoring of Dana. And the other thing you need to know is that in our choir rehearsals, Dana had a favorite warm-up, which went, I will never ever be the same. You can play. Yes. Be the same. There's a sort of wind chimey melody. And I have to say that the text in this particular moment of history strikes me as prophetic.
Flitting from the Lark for Dana Maiben. Mourning the loss of singing.
Choir, like a scattered flock of birds.
Struggles to reform, traces of song.
Are scantily heard on a Sunday morning.
Or the drier music of words.
For of course there is music in everything.
Tuned by scarcity. Drums rolling.
Through the storm, fanfares from open windows.
Street choruses rising to high, hot notes of flame.
But we cannot sing goodbye to anyone.
Together, in the vaulted acoustic
of love, loss, and grace, we can only say,
thank you, true bird, who sang with us.
That we would never, ever be the same.
We can only trust that this is the essential music.
Logistics. There we go. Speak, project, Jan.
So Dana, we have a letter, and I am going to read it to you. And
Maybe I should get my hanky.
you might, I forgot mine. Oh, we have a box there. Okay, there's.
Janet, look to your right.
Look to my right.
She can't. Oh, to the right? Okay.
Okay.
I give up. I give up.
Dear Dana, today we celebrate our last regular worship service with you as our interim music director. You have graced us with your many musical gifts: composer, conductor, singer, fiddler, violinist, and keyboard performer of both classical music and jazz. You have blessed us with your humor and kindness, your commitment to inclusion, your love of poetry, and your deep musical knowledge. Choir and congregation have had the good fortune to hear some of your compositions. We found them especially appropriate for Unitarian Universalist worship services, and we want to encourage you to write more. To that end, a number of us, staff, choir, members of the board, minister, and other members and friends, have joined together to offer you a commission to write 3 or 4 pieces for UU choirs. We have raised $7,000 for that purpose. We hope that you will honor us by returning to hear members of the USNF choir perform them when they are completed. On behalf of the entire congregation, we warmly and deeply thank you for all of the gifts you have shared with us. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm on your face. May the rain fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of her hand.
Well, thank you, everyone. That's very touching. And I feel the road rising up. Yeah, thank you. All I can say is that's good. And I've had a wonderful time here, everyone. I love you all. Thank you.
No, Since wasn't sure them. Are they on the night? They're on this. I can see you. You're on. You're on. No, you are. You are. You're good. It's all good. Yes, it's all good. Now you need to know. This is the end of our so-called regular year. The last 3 months have been anything but regular. They have brought uncertainty, suffering, fear, loss, dislocation. They have forced us to learn new ways of doing things and to forego things that give our lives structure and meaning, like coming here together for worship. And recent events have also, I hope, brought a greater number of white people in this country and around the world closer to acknowledging racism as a deep systemic evil, an evil from which we who are whites continue to benefit. Give up what you own. That was the quilt maker's challenge to the king. It was simple in that story, but we might ask ourselves what that means to us and for us. This morning we've named and given thanks for many gifts, many kinds of gifts, gifts of music and story, financial gifts that help our neighbors, especially those in communities of color, gifts of helping to guide our children, gifts of welcome and community. And we will continue to share our gifts throughout the summer. Next Sunday, we really encourage and invite you to attend the Unitarian Universalist Association's General Assembly Sunday service, which is from 10 to 11, a convenient time. For the rest of the summer, after that, members and friends of the congregation will lead our services all by Zoom. Our office hours will be reduced, but we will still send out weekly email notices, and either Jessica or I will be on call and available during alternating weeks for most of July and August, and we're back the end of August. Please let us know if you would like to lead something to help our community members stay connected. A program, a conversation, a book group, a movie night, as several of you have been doing. There are ways for us to maintain connections. And if you want to help usher in political change, please, please help usher in political change. Join our very active and very proactive vote efforts. You can find out all about that by getting in touch with Dave Reutman. We will end today's service as we have in the past with a flower ceremony, a modified flower ceremony, and as many of you by now know, the first flower ceremony was a brainchild of a Czech Unitarian minister named Norbert Čapek. He had converted to Unitarianism in the United States, where he lived as a refugee during World War I. And when he went back home after the war in the early 20s, many people were hungry for a religion that was free of rigid teachings and free of government control. And his church grew to over 1,000 members, his church in Prague. Its services had very little ritual, and its buildings had no stained glass or candles or decorations of any kind. The members came from different backgrounds, and Čapek worried after a while that sometimes they did not seem to think very highly of one another or appreciate one another's differences and gifts. And so he worried about this, and he came up with an idea, and one Sunday he asked everyone in the congregation to bring a flower with them to the service the next week. Those flowers were collected in vases, and he said a blessing over them, and then he asked everyone to come forward and take a different flower home with them. This idea and this ritual have been passed down to Unitarian Universalist congregations that still celebrate with a flower festival almost often on the final Sunday of the regular year. So if you don't live in Northampton or Florence or Leeds, many of you got a gift. We did a very crazy thing yesterday. A half dozen of you dropped off flowers from your gardens or Big Y at our building in the morning, and then a couple of you came and picked one up, but more importantly, many volunteers delivered over 100 flowers from across our valley and into the hills. And if you have a flower or one from your own garden, I ask you to hold it in your hand. We have pictures of some of those flowers that came into the building. Those were waiting for their delivery people to come and get them. They are symbols of the gifts of our community. And I'll end with a blessing over the flowers. It borrows some of what Norbert Čapek said in Prague nearly 100 years ago. May these flowers, in all their beautiful diversity, remind us of our own beautiful diversity. The different things we know and believe, our different experiences, our different gifts, and may they remind us to be one in spirit. Gathered here today, may we give thanks for all the gifts in our lives. May we resolve to do whatever we can, large or small, to help justice roll down. The world needs our efforts, our commitment, and our hope. Amazing. Please join now in singing our final hymn, The Sweet June Days. Lift your songs of gratitude and praise. Have a wonderful summer. Go in peace. And please join us in a rousing chorus of, speaking of hope, take me out to the ball game. It's a whole new ball game, folks.
Thank you, Dana, for all you've done and all you've brought to our congregation. And it is time for social hour. So when you get into your rooms, we invite you to introduce yourselves, share your names and pronouns, check in with each other, and reflect on the service and anything else that's come up for you. For those of you who are heading out into the day, happy Father's Day, happy solstice, have a wonderful Sunday. And for those of you who are going to switch over to our RE celebration for the year, there will be music and story and games, and we hope that you will join us. That link is in the chat as well. So I will now invite you into your breakout groups.
That's a Margaret card.